Each time we get to, each time we get together, we'll do a different meditation. This is the one that we have been doing in all of our classes, and it's a very central one. So let's just start with that. Gently close your eyes, please, and be comfortable wherever you are. And then please focus on your nostril and simply be present with your breath as you inhale and as you exhale. Just this much mindfulness of the inhalation and the exhalation. And now letting go of this, and this time focusing on your heart. Our heart has been yearning, aching, thirsting to connect with us. So if it works for you, one hand, both hands over the heart, and really feeling the heart, feeling a connection, holding it with love, compassion. And then please begin to connect with the beat, the rhythm of the heart. Feel it. Truly bonding with the beat of the heart. And now, with the ears of the heart, with the magical ears of the heart, please listen to this beautiful revelation that came to the Prophet Muhammad in a dream, where Spirit, Divinity says to each one of us, Beloved one, I cannot be contained in the space of the earth. I cannot be contained in the space of the heavens, but I can be contained in the space of the pure, loving heart. Just be with that mystery. Divine heart is inside human heart. The space of the heart is actually boundless, infinite. And now, in this boundless, sacred space where our beloved resides in the innermost chambers of our heart, please focus on the heart and plant words of beauty, love, sincerity. The sages suggest words like, I love you, but with feeling. No matter how awkward it feels, try it. Or, please, help me to love you. You can continue. Thank you. I am so grateful. Please help me. Please help me. I need help. I surrender to you. Or whatever else comes to you that feels appropriate, it resonates. Please say it again and again and again and again. You can never overdo it, but with feeling. Just a few more seconds, really articulating, expressing from the depth of your being. And as you keep saying those words with feeling, with sincerity, a divine vibration filled with love, blessings, healing, transformation is going from the tongue into the mouth, into the throat, into the chest, even deeper into the heart, even deeper into what is called the hidden, and then even deeper into the hidden of the hidden, astonishingly, amazingly loving us, blessing us, healing us, empowering us, transforming us. Feeling grateful, feeling loved. Stop saying anything at all. Simply be present. Be present with your heart, please. In silence, embracing your heart, where the space is boundless, infinite. And where our beloved resides outside of us and also inside of us. I'll do the Bismillah chant, and then come into awareness at your convenience. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. One more time. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. At your convenience, opening your eyes. So, my dear friends, once again, a very, very heartfelt welcome. What a joy, as I've said before, to bond, connect, see all of you in these rectangles of love. I can't stop saying that. And we always say that, we've been gathering together since 1992 or 1991 for one reason, an excuse to build community, just to connect with one another, because we all genuinely, desperately, urgently need community, authentic community, so that we can delight in the joys of life, help one another to evolve in the fullness of our being, and also to offer sincere, humble, genuine help, support, advice, insights, guidance regarding our life challenges, wants, needs, questions. So I really hope that as we proceed, you begin to connect with some people in the group and create that circle of love that Rumi talks about quite deeply from the depths of his being. Please come out of the circle of time and enter the circle of love. And my favorite verses from Rumi is a wall standing alone is useless. Add to it other walls, it can support a roof, even a granary. Only when ink joins with a pen can the blank paper say something. So, my dear friends, in this particular class, helping one another to cope with, deal with the challenges, the questions, the needs of our lives, I really want to emphasize again, genuinely, that we are all teachers and students alike. There is incredible collective wisdom in this group, and I really mean it. We're all interconnected, and I'd love to share stories. And of course, my favorite insight, this universe is made out of stories, not atoms. And really, the truth is, your story is my story is your story. It might differ in form, but in essence, we have a bit of all of our stories. We are as Prophet Muhammad said, we are mirrors to each other, to one another. I also wanted to say, whatever we say in our classes for the next 6 weeks, let us make an agreement among ourselves that we keep it absolutely confidential. Because unless that there is that trust, we will not be able to be willing to be vulnerable with the other. And without vulnerability, there is no authentic sharing. You know, any community that says, oh, everything is wonderful, great, fantastic all the time, does not ring true. Because we are human beings. There are bound to be problems, there are opposites. And so, unless there is that willingness, feeling of safety, feeling of support, of love, compassion, we will not be vulnerable. We will not create authentic community. Okay, I'll just be quiet for a few moments, just drink that in. And I'd like for all of us to start thinking about this question, that when I have challenges in my life or questions, wants, needs, but particularly I'm troubled by challenges, I need advice, I need guidance, counsel. Where do I go? Who do I turn to? What do I turn to? So, in your own life, ask yourself, when I've had these deep questions, and depending on what stage of life you're in, where do I go to get consolation, support, but also guidance, advice, help? Who do I turn to? What source do I turn to? So I think in the previous classes you have heard this. For a Muslim, there are 4 sources for questions, for challenges, where I need guidance. The first one is the Quran, the holy book of Muslims. If the answer is not there, they will look into a second source called Hadith, which is of 2 parts. One is to observe or to reflect on the sayings of the Prophet Muhammad, on the words of Prophet Muhammad regarding similar situations, and observing his conduct in those situations. That's called the Hadith. So Quran, Hadith. Then we have the wisdom, the insights of jurists, of sages, spiritual teachers, elders, mystics, who, and they abound in Islam. And the last one is taking a personal decision based on the Prophet Muhammad's words that no matter which authorities you listen to, which pundits, always consult your heart. Consult your heart. Very famous advice. Consult your heart. What does your heart say? I always give the example, you'll remember, of coffee, because in the Northwest, a lot of coffee is consumed. Do you know where coffee was first discovered? It was discovered by spiritual Muslims who are goat herders, either in Ethiopia or Yemen. We don't know where exactly. But as you remember the story, being goat herders, one day they noticed that the goats, when they came back excited and jumpy and kind of exhilarated. And being good Sufis or mystical inquiring beings, they wondered what is making them so excited and chirpy and happy. Happy goats. So next time they followed the goats, if you remember, and they found they were eating those beans, coffee beans, what we know is coffee beans today. So they also boiled the beans and put sugar and they drank it, and they also felt chirpy and happy and kind of excited. But now the question arose, is this halal? Is this kosher? Is this acceptable? So remember the four sources? They go into the Quran. Nothing in the Quran about coffee beans. Nothing in the Hadith about coffee beans. So then they went down the mountain to ask those sages and elders, we're taking this kosher, this boiled up beans, and is this acceptable? Is it wise? Give us some guidance. So they asked further questions. Tell us, what does it do to you when you drink this? Oh, we become excited, invigorated, this, that. Then the jurists and sages said, but wait a minute. It sounds like it's an intoxicant, like alcohol. And alcohol is forbidden in Islam. Therefore, we forbid you to take this. And very disappointed, it was forbidden. They went back. But they went over the four sources in an assembly, and they realized there is that fourth one. Consult your heart. Consult your heart. They consulted their heart, and then they went back again to the jurists and elders and said, why we like this? We've consulted our heart, and we want to tell you why we love this drink, because it keeps us awake all night, gives us more time and more vigor to do prayers to God. And they said, okay, that sounds very good now, said the jurists. And from that time, it became halal and kosher. Kahwa, or coffee, is acceptable. That was just a sort of a funny but real story. It's a fact. That's how coffee was discovered. And they went through those stages. When heart transplant was first done in South Africa by Dr. Christian Barnard, I always use that example, the question arose, is it morally ethical to have somebody else's heart beating in my heart? Nothing in the Quran, nothing in the Hadith. Again, they went to elders and jurists, and they said, what does it do if you have a heart transplant? Well, it allows us to live longer. And in the Quran, there's several verses that say that what takes you to heaven is not your gender, not your religion, it's doing righteous deeds. And these people who made a presentation to do heart transplant, they said, if you live longer, you have more time to do righteous deeds. And so then it became acceptable after that argument. So just drink that in, but I'm going to ask you to start writing or thinking for yourself, what are the sources you go to? So I'll be quiet for a couple of minutes. Write it down. What are your sources? Okay, my dear friends, just bring it to close gently, a few more seconds. And now, my dear friends, I want to just share some stories with you, teaching stories. And I think for many of you, you've heard this many times before, but all teaching stories, please know this, from every tradition, any tradition, has many levels of meaning. And sometimes when I hear the same story, which I share in class, I've probably said it maybe 200 times or sometimes 1,000 times, really. I always get a different, subtle understanding of it. So this morning, when I got up, I said, let me just at random, what stories come to me that I feel would be good. So a lot of the mullah stories came. So it just shows my bias. I love those stories that are funny, that really have humor in them. So the first one, if you remember, I should stop saying that, but the mullah is a pretty well-known preacher. By the way, he is a sage and an idiot rolled into one. Just for you, those of you who don't know who the mullah is, the fictional mullah, he's fictional, has a turban, has a beard, always rides a donkey, and he is very eager and happy to laugh at himself. And he invites you to join him because, he says, this is just your personality, but you're more than your personality. And how will you go beyond your personality unless you become aware of all your foibles, the funny aspects of you? Okay, so here, a very big mosque, they invite the mullah. They ask him, please come and give the sermon. So he comes, he stands up in the pulpit and he says, do you know what I'm going to speak about today? And all of them say, no, we have no idea, no idea. And what does he do? He steps down saying, if you have no idea what I'm going to speak about, it's like planting seeds on barren, stony ground. You must have some idea. I'll be of no use to you. So he goes away. So then the organizers of the organizations, organizers of the mosque, they plead with him, please come back a second time. So now when he steps on the dais, pulpit, he says, do you know what I'm going to speak about today? And you know what is all the people say, yes. They learned from last time. Yes, we do know what you're going to say about. He steps down again, saying, if you know what I'm going to say, why should I say anything at all? I'm wasting your time and my time. They beg him to come a third time. Again, the same question. Do you know what I'm going to speak about today? And the congregation is very confused. Some of them say yes, some of them say no. Again, he steps down, saying, the ones who said yes, please, you share and teach with the ones who said no. And that's the end of the story. One level of that story is what we have just mentioned earlier. We are teachers and students alike. We can learn from one another. Yes, we have to learn and listen to experts, pundits, authorities. But there's so much wisdom in the collective group at the grassroots level, which is why, and you've heard this, that they say in all these elite conferences, the greatest learning comes where? During the coffee breaks or the lunch breaks. So just be with that for a few moments. Okay, the second story to reflect on. There is a blind man, and by the way, this is totally allegorical, a blind person, man or woman, who receives an invitation to the king's, to the emperor's banquet, which is some distance away. And the blind man says, I'm blind. Oh, alas, I cannot go. I cannot accept the king's invitation. There is a lame person, crippled, also receives an invitation to the king's banquet. Alas, I cannot go. I'm lame. I'm crippled. They're stuck. Well, they go to the mullah with this terrible problem. And the mullah says, after he listens to the story, he goes into a meditation. He says, this is the beauty of community. Blind man, my blind friend, it looks to me like your legs are strong. And my lame crippled friend, it looks to me like your eyes are good. Therefore, he advises the lame person to get in a piggy bank way, on the blind person. And says, your eyes are good. Let your eyes direct the strong legs of the blind person to go to the king's banquet. I hope I said it correctly. That combination allowed them to travel, to make their way to the king's banquet. Just think about it. It has many levels of meaning. You see, in our life, in my life, your life, we're all metaphorically, in some ways, blinded and crippled. And we say, alas, I cannot move further. I'm stuck in my personality. There's just one interpretation. I cannot make the journey from my personality to my divine spark, my Christ nature, Elohim nature, Allah nature, because I'm blind, I'm crippled. But if we join in community, we can help one another to make that journey. Just be with that story for a little while. Okay, third story. One of my favorite ones is the mullah is gravely ill. Everybody is lamenting and crying and weeping, particularly his wife, really copiously shedding tears and so deeply grieving that her husband is so unwell, gravely ill. And now in comes the expert, the authority. And who is this authority and expert? The allopathic doctor, the medical doctor, who examines the mullah at length, turns to the mullah's wife and says, "Oh, honorable wife of the mullah, only Allah is immortal. I'm so sorry to tell you, the soul of your husband has flown to the bosom of God. Your husband is no more. He's dead." But the mullah is alive. And he's quietly saying, feebly saying, "I'm alive, I'm alive, I'm alive, I'm alive." And what does the wife say? "Quiet, don't argue with the doctor." So, of course, it's a funny story, but how does that resonate for you? So I have to ask myself, Jamal, who are you so slavishly dependent on in your life? Authorities, experts. It sometimes blinds you, dumbs you, deafens you to the obvious because the expert said so. The authority said so. So just be with that for a few moments. Who and what are you, Jamal, so slavishly dependent on? So much so that we forget the advice of great sages who say, yes, listen to the experts, listen to the authorities, but consult your heart, consult your heart, consult your heart. Okay, next one. My favorite one. And because it's my favorite, probably a few thousand times I've said it, but every time I get a different shade of meaning. The story of Rabia and the lost key. Rabia is that very well-known, beloved female sage in Islam, 8th century, 9th century. And she's trying to impart a very important, essential teaching. But she realizes she's not connecting, not able to truly share the importance of this insight. So the story goes, in those days, of course, no electricity, but pillars with fire. One evening at night, she's looking for the lost key. And of course, she's famous. The entire village or town joins in, and they look and look. They try to find the key. They cannot find the key. Finally, someone says, "Beloved Rabia, can you kind of tell us whereabouts you might have dropped the key so we can better focus our search?" And then, to their surprise, Rabia says, "Actually, I did not lose my key here, but miles away out there in my house." They're surprised. They say, "Then, Rabia, beloved Rabia, why are you looking for it here and not in your house?" She says, "Simple. My house has no light at all. But there's so much more light out here." And they laugh. And then she says, "Ah, you have laughed? That tells me you are intelligent people. But now you tell me, when you have lost your happiness, your peace of mind, your joy, because of a failed relationship out there, a plan that did not materialize out there, etc., etc., and you spend all your time on the outside trying to fix this, fix that, blame this person, blame that person, this circumstance, that circumstance. Yes, that's important. But you really did not lose it out there primarily. You lost it inside you. Your happiness, your contentment, your peace of mind. But of course, it's much more dim inside, much more inconvenient. Be with that story. How does that resonate for you? My favorite words from Rumi, how does it splash in your heart? This is also about, in Islamic spirituality, it's called Qibla. Qibla means direction. Like this golden color you see here, this is the Qibla. This is in the direction of Mecca. So when we Muslims pray, we pray in this direction. In this direction. So in your life, when something difficult happens, you face a challenge, you seek an answer, are you looking in the right direction? Are you looking in the right direction for what you had lost? Okay, next story. Again, Rabia. I'll stick with Rabia for one or two more. Rabia is actually, as I said, an 8th, 9th century beloved sage. She was also very beautiful. And the men would be very entranced by her beauty. And there was one particular Sufi master, also a spiritual teacher, Hassan of Basra. He was very enamored of her and always wanted to impress her, wanted to marry her. But she would always say, "I'm already married." He would say, "To who?" She said, "To God. I'm already married to God. There's no space for me to marry you." But he would insist, trying to impress her. So one day, as the story goes, they're in this walled compound with a lake in the middle, and they're reclining against a tree, sitting in the grass, and they're discussing very beautiful spiritual topics, and it becomes time for prayer. What does Hassan do? He takes his prayer rug, he takes it to the lake, and amazingly, it floats on the water, and he steps on the prayer rug, and he's able to stay afloat on the prayer rug, and he says, Rabia, come and join me for prayers, trying to impress her. What does Rabia do? She steps on a prayer rug, and she levitates magically and goes above him, above even the walled compound, and says, Hassan, if you can, join me for prayers up here. And by the way, is this not what you want? That all the people outside the wall, the public, they see us and they admire us for those wonderful magical talents we have? Then she says, Hassan, what you did just now in your display, a fish can do. What I just did, a fly can do. Yes, that's great. But you're forgetting the most magical work, the most essential work, the most enchanting work is to do the inner inconvenient work. That is the magic that'll transform us, alchemize us, metamorphorize us. I don't forget the exact English word. And what is the inner inconvenient work? To transform the ego from a commanding master to a personal assistant. Open the heart so there's so much more inner spaciousness. So once again, ask yourself, am I doing the real magical work that alchemizes me? From a caterpillar, I become a butterfly. The inner inconvenient work. And by the way, Rabia is very famous. And this is very true. She used to run into the streets of Basra. She loved to express through symbolisms, and she would carry a torch of fire in one hand and a pail of water in the other hand. She said, what are you doing, Rabia? She was a very famous lady. Well, I'm going to set fire to the sensual pleasures of heaven. And with the pail of water, I'm going to put out, quench all the blazing fires of hell. And her famous utterance is, oh God, if I worship you for fear of hell, if I worship you because I fear hell, burn me in hell. If I worship you for all those pleasures of heaven, bar me, stop me from its gates. But if I worship you for who you are, please begrudge me not your everlasting beauty. If I worship you for you, please, I beg you, begrudge me not your everlasting beauty. So one of the lessons is this attachment to this dread, fear of hell, or attachment to all the pleasures of heaven. Rabia says, is this a way to live? Out of fear? Out of sheer desire? Is this a way to live your life? Reminds me of the words of Hafiz, who says, God wants to see more laughter, more playfulness in your eyes. But that is your greatest witness to God. Hafiz says, your greatest regret in life might be, oh universe, I did not kiss you enough. Those sounds are confirming it with music. It is true, it is true, it is true. Okay, so just a couple more. Who am I? Very short story of the mullah going as far as China for a financial transaction, and the banker and he get into a discussion, and the banker finally says, "Sir, do you have any identity to prove that you are who you say you are?" And remember what the mullah does? He reaches into his pocket and simply takes out a pocket mirror, and for a long time peers into the pocket mirror, and he finally says, "Yep, that's true. I certify that is me." The one level of the story is, how do we define ourselves? And by extension, define you. Usually by our outer identity, my profession, my status, the car I drive, missing out on the inner reality, my capacity to love, capacity to forgive, my goodness, my willingness to be of service, ability to be patient. Forgetting that besides our personality, our outer reality, we have this Christ nature, Buddha nature, Elohim nature, Allah nature. And today Amber is not here right now, but Amber reminds us of that poetry which all of you know by heart, or some of you know it by heart. You are a ruby in the midst of granite. How long will you continue to deceive us? For we can see the look in your eyes. So please return to the root of your real self. Do I know who I really am? Again, Rumi, who says, you are more precious than heaven and earth. You are more precious than heaven and earth. Sell yourself for not so little a price, being so precious in God's eyes. You are more precious than heaven and earth. Sell yourself for not so little a price, being so precious in God's eyes. In the Quran, there's a verse, please do not sell your bond with God for so paltry a price. Do not sell your bond with God for so paltry a price. Just be with that for a few moments. Okay, one last one. One last one before which I'll have you do a little bit of writing exercise. Again, a familiar one, but let's really meditate on this one, the real gem. Let me take the Buddhist perspective. Buddhist monks, they're always willing to be of service, so they don't have time to cook food. So for food, they go to householders' houses, and they beg for food, and the householder is delighted to give the food because they earn merit. So this one particular monk goes to one particular house, knocks on the door, happens to be the house of a jeweler who is delighted to give food to the monk. And when the monk opens his sparse pouch to receive the food from the jeweler, I hope my pronunciation is correct, who deals with jewels and stones, jeweler. The jeweler is stunned to find that in the sparse pouch of the monk, there is this invaluable, incredibly precious gem. And the jeweler says, "Monk, where did you get that?" I'm a jeweler. That's worth, at least $20-30 million. That's a precious, invaluable, exquisitely beautiful stone. He's just struck, bewildered, that the monk has this in his possession worth $20 million, a precious stone. And the monk who has equanimity says, I kind of remember a disciple gave it to me 5 years ago. And the monk turns to the jeweler and says, do you want it? Of course not. I can't have it. It belongs to you. It's yours. I know, says the monk. Because it belongs to me, I'm willing to give it to you. Take it if you love it so much. I give it to you willingly. The jeweler takes it and the monk goes away. And the jeweler is so happy, exhilarated, delirious with joy. My life has changed. Life of my children, my grandchildren, $20 million worth. But now the questions arise in his mind. Anxieties. Should I tell my wife? Of course, it's my wife. I love her. But my wife has this sister who is so gossipy. The entire village will know. No, I should not tell her. No, I should tell her. Should I tell IRS about this? Yes or no? Can't make up his mind. Should I hire guards? Of course. It's so valuable. I must hire guards. But if I hire guards, people will know I'm hiding something precious. No, I should not hire guards. Cannot sleep a wink. 1 day, 2 day, 3 day. Shall I do this? Shall I do this? Shall I do this? Shall I do that? On the 10th day, after all these perplexing questions, he is graced by an insight. He takes that gem and runs after the monk. It's difficult. After a few days, the story goes, he finally comes to where the monk is, and he says, monk, please take this gem back. But please, give me the real gem. The monk says, the real gem? He says, yes, I realized the real gem is the inner peace, the ease, the equanimity with which you are able to let go of this precious gem and give it to me. That peace, that equanimity, that ease within me to be able to do that, that is the real gem. That is what I really want. So my dear friends, in our lives, there is form and there is essence. Sometimes we get stuck in the form, forgetting to focus on the essence. Remember the verse of Rumi who says, no matter what plans you make, no matter how many titles you acquire, no matter how much riches you accumulate, the thief will come from the unguarded side. I repeat, no matter what plans you make, how many titles, how much of riches, the thief will come from the unguarded side. Jamal, can you focus? Can you concentrate? Can you spend your time and energy on that which can never be stolen? Love, compassion, justice, forgiveness. You decide what is essence. Focus on that. That's the real gem. Just be with that story for a few moments. In my life, am I striving for the real gem? Just a few seconds more. And we'll bring this to a close by you doing a little bit of a writing exercise just for 2 minutes. So let's all do an Om just to indicate the fact we're changing gears, as it were. Deep breath. Ah. So, my dear friends, now I'd like you to think about what are your deepest life challenges at this time that you'd like some help with, some support, some advice, some guidance, some consolation. By the way, we should not share this publicly because I want you to be vulnerable. But write them down. You might want to share it in the small groups. And I would love for you to send those insights about those challenges to Sally Jo, who will not share them with anybody. And from that, we shall derive the question for next week. Sally Jo, please continue. Say any other words about